What is up, people? It's me, Teja, and I'm back with another exciting video. And in this video, I'm going to make use of AI to help me hack into this hack-the-box machine called Jarvis. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, well, ChatGPT doesn't help you when it's anything related to hacking or penetration testing in general. I know. It doesn't work. We are not going to use ChatGPT in this video. We're going to use another AI model that is specifically trained to be your cybersecurity copilot, and it's called White Rabbit Neo AI. It's built on top of the LLaMA language model, and it's tested with various hacking, penetration testing, cybersecurity related data. This is an uncensored AI model, which means you can ask it anything related to pen testing and cybersecurity, and you'll always get an answer without any censorship. And it's perfect to be your co-pilot. And in this video, I'm going to use this language model to guide me through hacking this hack-the-box machine. So let's go ahead and see how this is going to turn out. Before we move on with the video, here's a quick disclaimer. This video is intended only for educational purposes. The website or the services that I'm hacking in this video are in a controlled lab environment, which is in a hack-the-box machine, and I'm not doing it on any live deployment. And if you want to test your skills or replicate what I am doing in this video, make sure you do it on a controlled lab setup and do not do it on any live website. You can use the same hack-the-box machine I'm showing in this video, or you can find some other intentionally vulnerable apps that you can practice and test your pen testing skills. So with that out of the way, let's get started. All right, so I'm connected to the HackTheBox VPN, and let me test my connection to the machine. And there we go. We are able to access that machine. So let's go ahead and start hacking this machine. Initially, all we know about the target is just its IP address. So I'm going to copy it and I'm going to give it to White Rabbit Neo and ask it, how do I get started? Maybe with an Nmap scan. So I am trying to hack a target and I have its IP address, and I'm going to mention the IP address. Let's start with an Nmap scan. So let's see what it tells us. All right, so sure enough, it gave us an Nmap scan to perform a port scan on the target. So if you look at the response it gave us, it also explains you the different flags that are there in the command. For example, it says that this flag right here is used to scan all the ports, and this flag right here is used to detect the version numbers of the services. And this flag right here is to run default Nmap scripts against the discovered ports and services. So I'm going to copy this Nmap scan and I'm going to run it on my terminal, and let's see what response we get from Nmap. So this is the response that we got from Nmap, and if you can look closely at the output, and before we move on any further, I would like to say this: the AI is just supposed to be your co-pilot. It's just supposed to help you through the process. So what I mean to say is that even though you're using AI, to hack this machine, you cannot just blindly execute the commands that it is giving you, and you cannot just blindly paste the output that you got from running the commands that it gave you. You have to go through the commands and you have to understand the response that you get. So in our Nmap scan, you can see that there are 3 ports open. 22, which is the SSH service, 80, which is the HTTP service, and we also have another one called 64999, which is also a HTTP service. So we can start with the 80, which is the HTTP service, because that is where most of the vulnerabilities exist. Web apps, it has a lot of potential for things to go wrong, for vulnerabilities or loopholes to exist. So I'm going to copy all this output and I'm going to give it to the AI. I'm going to say this is my Nmap output. Let's start with the port 80 HTTP and let's see what it tells us to do next. All right, here's something interesting. So the AI told us to examine the web application on port 80. So it asked us to visit the browser and go to the particular URL. So let me actually first go to this link, and it looks like a website for a company or a hotel called Stark Hotel. Okay, but you can see that the AI already has that information. it was able to say that the website is a hotel booking system called Stark Hotel. Now, how did it know that? The AI doesn't even have access to the HackTheBox machine because it's not connected to the VPN like I am. Now, the reason why the AI was able to come up with this information is that there are probably some walkthroughs on the internet that the AI has in its training data. So in other words, it already went through, all of those walkthroughs while it was being trained. And that is how it was able to, somehow extract that data. But in a real penetration testing scenario, this wouldn't happen. So we are just going to ignore the fact that the AI knows exactly what that website is about. But the next thing that it gave us is what is really crucial. It said, let's run a directory brute force attack on the web server to find hidden files and directories. And it gave us a GoBuster command like this. Now, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this in my terminal. And the path to word list, I'm going to use a word list in my word list directory called the directory list 2.3 medium.txt. So let me go ahead and run this, and now GoBuster is going to try and find out the different directories or paths that exist on the website. Awesome. So while this is running in the background, I'm going to go ahead and check out the website, like see its functionality, see what it's doing, because maybe we might be able to find some endpoint that is poorly coded, that has a loophole somewhere. So first thing, I see a sign in button over here, and that takes us to nowhere. So it looks like a dummy sign in thing. Then you have utilities, which also takes us nowhere. We have rooms, and that takes us to rooms suits.php. So that tells us that this website is built on PHP. So there are a lot of room listings that tells or lists the different types of rooms available. So I'm going to click on book now, and it takes me to another page. And if I click on this button, it doesn't work. But if I click on book now, it takes me to some other page. And if you look at the URL, you can see that whenever I click on any book now button, it's going to take me to room.php COD equal to 2. So if I go to, for example, some other room type, you can see the ID is changed. It's now changed from 2 to 3. So we know that the ID is being sent to the server. So we can assume that whenever we click on a particular type of room, the ID of that particular type of room is being sent to the server, and we can assume that in the backend, the particular data that is related to that ID is being retrieved from the database, and then it's being served as a response to us. So we can actually cross-check that. I've opened the same website in Firefox because I like developer tools of Firefox better than, Chromium-based browsers. So if I go to, for example, if I change this to COD equal to 3, you can see there is a request somewhere. There you go. We are basically sending a GET request to this endpoint. And you can notice here that the parameter name is COD and the value that is being passed to it is 3. So yeah, we are sending something to the server, and the server is taking our request, extracting this ID value, and it's sending us the appropriate response based on this ID. So for example, if I change this to, let's say, 100, and my assumption is that there are probably not 100 types of rooms. So I'm just curious what it gives us. So if I type 100 here and hit enter, that's interesting. It did not give us any response. So that once again adds to our assumption that this ID value is being treated in the backend, and the corresponding data that is associated with the ID value is being extracted from the database, and it's being served to us as a response. So as soon as I have that assumption, the first thing that comes into my mind is, what if there is a possibility for injection? In this case, we are looking at SQL injection because we are assuming the data is being retrieved from a database. And that is an interesting thought. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this endpoint, and I'm going to go back to my AI, and I'm going to tell it that I have found an interesting endpoint, and I'm going to give it the endpoint that I found. And I'm going to basically ask it if there would be a possibility for an SQL injection. So I'm going to say, could there be a potential SQL injection here? And I'm going to ask it, how do I check it? How do I check for it? And let's see what the AI gives us. Okay, so the AI agrees with us. It thinks that there could be a potential or a possible SQL injection in this endpoint. And it gave us ways to check for this SQL injection vulnerability. The first one is to do a manual testing, but we're not going to do that. We like things automated. So we'll go for the automated approach. It tells us that we can use a tool like LLaMA to automate the SQL injection process, and it gave us a command that we can use. So basically, it's passing this particular endpoint that we suspect could be a potential SQL injection, and it's going to automate the testing process for us. So I'm going to copy this command right here. I'm going to go back to my terminal, and oh, wait a minute. Before I can execute that command, I find another interesting thing here in our directory enumeration. I find a new endpoint called PHPMyAdmin. So if I go to PHPMyAdmin here, let's see what it has for us. That looks like a PHPMyAdmin login page. So if we try default credentials, root, which is the default, well, the default credentials do not work, but this is worth noting because this could be something interesting. But anyway, let me open up a new terminal here and let me run the SQLmap command that the AI gave us, and let's see how it goes. So as you can see, it is testing for different payloads to see which one will work. Okay, so the scan is done. Let me make this full screen. And you can see that SQLmap did find out that the target is vulnerable to the SQL injection. In particular, the get parameter COD is vulnerable. And these are the payloads that it was able to use to exploit the SQL injection vulnerability. And it also tells us the backend DBMS is MySQL. So our assumption that there could be a potential SQL injection is true, and we were able to find out that the target is vulnerable. That's good news. So let's share our happiness with the AI and ask it how we can take advantage of this. So I'm going to copy this part and I'm going to give it to the AI. I'm going to say the SQL map scan came positive. I'm going to paste this. And how do I now enumerate the database? And let's see. So that's what we want to do, right? We want to enumerate the database to find, critical data, what could be interesting in there. All right, so it gave us a bunch of data. The first thing that it asked us to do is to use SQLmap to dump the database schema. All right, so let me copy this, go back, paste it here. Let's see. So these are the available databases according to SQLmap. We have hotel, we have information schema, and MySQL and performance schema. And then you can select the database that contains the relevant data. So I'm going to copy this. So it says replace the database name with the database you want to enumerate. So we have 4 databases. I think the first one is more interesting. Hotel, maybe it contains any kind of interesting or sensitive stuff. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to replace this with hotel, and let's see what it comes up with. So it looks like the database hotel has one table, which is room, and that does not look interesting to me. I mean, sure, it contains room details, guest details, but that would not be enough for us to gain access to the target server, or in other words, get a reversal to the server. So I'm gonna do another database. I'm going to say MySQL, which is the second database. And let's see what tables it has. Okay, so it has a lot of tables. And the user table looks interesting because it might contain the credentials of the users of the database. So the next step that the AI gave us is to dump the table data. So once we know which table we want to dump, we can make use of this command. So we have to basically change this to the database that we want to use, which is MySQL, and the table that we want to dump, which is the user table. So let me copy this command over here and let me paste it. And I'm going to change the database name first to MySQL and the table name to user. And then this dump flag will basically dump all the data inside that table. So fingers crossed, let's see what data we will have. So it looks like, I mean, this is not very well formatted, but if you look closely, you can see it looks like we have a hash, a password hash, and the username for that password hash. And fortunately for us, SQLmap took one step further and even cracked the hash for us. This is the hash, and this is the cracked password. This is the clear text password that SQLmap was able to extract from the password hash. So I miss you is the password. Now, don't misunderstand this. This password does not exist in the table. The only thing that exists in the table is this data, the username and the password hash. This string, which is in the parentheses, does not actually exist in the data. It was just appended there by SQLmap because it managed to crack the password for us. So a point to be noted, plain text password does not exist in the database. The only thing that exists is a password hash, which we were able to crack. And the password happens to be I miss you. And we also know the username, which is dbadmin. So now that we have the username and the password, we can now go ahead and log in to the PHPMyAdmin portal that we found. So let's try that. dbadmin is the username and the password is I miss you. And it works. We are now inside the database. And at this point, we can basically see the whole database, see the data that exists in the database, insert new entries and all that stuff. But we were already able to do that with SQLmap by making use of the SQL injection vulnerability in the COD parameter, right? So this does not add much value to us. I mean, the fact that we were able to log into the PHPMyAdmin does not inherently add any value to our process because we were already able to dump the whole database. We already know what data exists in there. But one thing that I can find right away is the version of the PHPMyAdmin, which is 4.8.0. Now, I don't know if we could find the version without logging into PHPMyAdmin, but that doesn't matter. We somehow know the version of PHPMyAdmin and it happens to be 4.8.0. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make a quick Google search with this thing. I'm going to say PHPMyAdmin 4.8.0 exploit. And let's see anything that comes up. So first thing is a remote code execution vulnerability in PHPMyAdmin 4.8.1, which is a newer version than the version that we currently have. So there is a good possibility that this exploit might work for us. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code, come back to my terminal, and let me open up my Sublime text editor and paste this in here, and I'll come back and run the script. Python 3 exploit.py, and it yells back at us with the usage instructions. So the IP address is going to be this one. I'm going to remove HTTP from the start because we only want the IP address, I guess. And the port is 80 and the username is dbadmin. The password is I miss you. And the command, we'll just run who am I like this. And let's see if this works. Okay, it did not work. Oh, we also need to specify the endpoint, which is /phpMyAdmin. And let's see if this works. Okay, so it looks like it worked. We got the response to our command, who am I, which is www.data, the user, the current user. That's awesome. And we can now, I think, go ahead and try to get a reversal now that we have a working exploit, right? So I'm going to go back to AI and say I am able to exploit PHPMyAdmin 4.8.0? Yeah, 4.8.0 with RCE. Now give me a reverse shell payload I can use. Oh, it's giving us the PHP reverse shell, but I don't really want the PHP because, well, that would make it complex, doesn't it? So I'll just say, give me a bash reverse shell payload. Okay, so this looks fine, I guess. So let me copy that and I'll replace it. Okay, before I actually go ahead and do that, let me close this scan. So before I go ahead and actually do that, let me actually go ahead and start the listener, the netcat listener, so that I can cache my reverse shell connection. So I'll say LVNP and 1560 will be the port that I'll use. And let's run this command again. And this time I have to change the attacker IP and attacker port. So my IP is 10.10.14.25 and my port that I'm using is 1560. So let's see if this works. Oh, we got a connection, but it just terminated. So maybe let's try to enclose this as a bash command like this, bash -c and something like this, so that the whole thing will be executed as a bash command. You know, sometimes when reverse shells are not stable, I use this trick and usually it works, but let's see if it works in this scenario. It does not work in this scenario. Maybe it has something to do with the quotes. Let me replace this to single quotes and let me enclose the whole thing inside double quotes. Because I think this is kind of like a Python thing. It's not parsing the command line arguments correctly because, you know, there are spaces inside it and we are not, you know, enclosing it within quotes, because usually when there are spaces in a command line argument, you usually enclose it within quotes. So that is what I'm trying to do now. Let's see. I mean, not sure if this will work. Oh, wait, it did work. We got a reverse shell, if you can see here. Who am I? I'm www.data, obviously. So yeah, we are now successfully able to get a reverse shell on the machine, and I'm gonna end this video here, but there is still things left to do. I mean, this is not the end of the machine. You're still supposed to escalate your privileges to root, and I will leave that as a challenge for you to do. So that will be all for this video. We have just seen how AI can be used as your co-pilot while doing penetration testing and hacking related jobs. And this is really, if you ask me, such an unreal thing compared to what things were like before, you know, 3-4 years. And it's just like magic, if you ask me. It definitely has downsides to it because people can, you know, abuse this. But in the right hands, this is such a value add for pen testers because it can literally assist them through their pen testing process, and it makes their life a lot easier, just like how you saw in this video. So go ahead and check out White Rabbit Neo AI. The link will be in the description below. They have a free plan as well that you can use without paying anything. So go ahead and give it a try. It's really great. The link will be in the description below. So if you like this video, please do not forget to leave a thumbs up below. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do hit that subscribe button and also turn on the bell icon to receive instant updates from my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.